stop it. I'm not doing it anymore. By the time you say you won't do it now, it'll be too late. Hey, good. Let's do it again. Shen Qingyu was awakened by the blinding light. She turned over on her side with her eyes closed, wanting to bury her face in the pillow and hide. But then she caught a whiff of an unfamiliar scent. It's not the scent of the lavender laundry detergent she usually uses in her apartment. It's a special cedar flavor. She suddenly opened her eyes. Her eyes were immediately struck by a blinding white bedding, white walls, and California sunlight streaming in through the gaps in the white curtains, bright enough to make her eyes ache. This is not her room. She immediately sat up, propping herself up with her hands. The blanket slipped off her shoulders, and a chill began to creep across her skin. She glanced down briefly, and then her whole body froze. She isn't wearing any clothes. Not a single one. The marks on my body were especially vivid in the morning light. Several red bruises just below my collarbone, and several finger-shaped bruises on the side of my waist. There was also that vague, indefinable ache, spreading slowly through every limb and joint of my body. Shen Qingyu's breath paused for a moment. Oh my God, where is she right now? Hey, what did she do last night? Shen Qingyu began to feel a headache, a kind of pain that started at her temples and radiated all the way to the back of her head. As if someone were drilling into it with an AWL, she forced herself to start recalling yesterday's events. Last night, she went to a bar to get drunk because her mother had asked her to return home for an arranged marriage. For 20-6 years, Shen Qingyu has never set foot in a bar. She's every honest good girl, a sold daughter from a family of lawyers. From childhood she excelled both academically and morally, eventually earning a doctorate in law from Stanford. Her life's trajectory was as clear and straight as a line drawn with a ruler, without the slightest deviation, without a single surprise. But if she's destined to become a tool for marriage, then at least, before becoming that tool, she should do something that doesn't resemble her true self. The bartender at the bar gave her a slightly strange look, probably because he'd never seen a woman wearing a cashmere cardigan come to a bar before. Shen Qingyu didn't care. She tilted her head back and gulped down the sweet, cloying liquid, then raised her hand to order another drink. 2 cups. 3 cups. She couldn't remember how many drinks she had. She only remembered the lights growing increasingly blurry, and then someone grabbed her arm. Hey, pretty girl, you look lonely. A blonde man with a pungent cologne scent emanating from him stood next to 2 others who were equally unremarkable. Well, minus meaning companions. They grabbed her wrist with such force that she couldn't break free. Come with us. Well, have some fun. Shen Qingyu's mind was blank, but her instincts made her start struggling. No, let go of me. The bartender pretended not to notice. The other patrons in the bar, sensing the commotion over here, glanced briefly at her before shifting their gaze elsewhere, as if they'd seen nothing at all. She was being dragged outward, and the bar door loomed closer and closer before her eyes. A cold breeze seeped in through the crack in the door, and for a fleeting moment, she suddenly became fully awake. You absolutely must not go out. Just go out and that's it. Help! She shouted with all her might, her voice sounding so faint amid the loud music. Hey, Wage In doesn't like to meddle in other people's business. Just now H.E.T. finished a dinner meeting with his business partner. After the formalities were over, the other party suggested let's switch places and sit down somewhere else. He politely declined, but he still didn't feel like heading back to the hotel yet. So he walked into this bar not far from the restaurant. I just want to sit for a while. The nights in San Francisco are different from those in Jingbi, I hear. The hustle and bustle feels strangely foreign. The air in the bar is filled with a mingled scent of cheap perfume, and the music thumps so loudly it makes your temples ache. He sits in the corner of the bar, orders a glass of whiskey, and sips it slowly, his gaze wandering aimlessly over the crowd. Then he saw the woman. She sat alone at the other end of the bar, wearing a cashmere cardigan of exquisite texture, a stark contrast to the women around her, who were dressed in sequined halter tops. The glasses in front of her were already empty several times over, and the bartender's gaze upon her carried a hint of amusement, as if he were watching a rabbit that had strayed into the jungle by mistake. Pei Huijin withdrew his gaze. It's none of his business. He took another sip of wine. When she looked up again, 3 more people had joined the woman. They were blonde, powerfully built, and smiling with oily enthusiasm. The woman is struggling. Pei Huijin put down his wine cup. It's none of his business. He said it to himself again, but as the woman was being dragged out, he turned his head and glanced at her for a moment. For just a moment, I caught her gaze right through the crowd, through the lights, and past those indifferent faces that pretended not to notice. In that instant, Pei Huijin clearly saw her eyes, clean frantic like a small animal cornered against the wall, pleading for help. He stood up. By the time he realized what was happening, Hid already stepped in front of the 3 people. Hid pulled the woman behind him and was supporting her waist with one hand. Just with me. Shen Qingyu raised her head and saw only the profile of a man, his jawline sharp and defined, his eyebrows and eyes cold. Dan was wearing a black overcoat that didn't look like it had a brand, yet it clearly looked very expensive. The 3 men froze for a second, then the one in charge left, revealing a set of teeth yellowed by cigarette stains. Hey man, just not with anyone. We saw her first. Pei Huijin didn't say a word, he just kept staring at them. Hid used that look countless times at the negotiating table, unconsciously commanding respect, exuding an overwhelming sense of authority, and naturally making even the most arrogant partner feel 3 inches shorter. But this is San Francisco, these guys aren't buying it. Listen. The one at the front stepped forward and placed his hand on Pei Huijin's shoulder. Mind your own business, or you'll regret it. Pei Huijin glanced down at the hand, then raised his eyes to meet the greasy face. I am the CEO of the Pei Group, he said, his voice slow but articulate, exuding an innate composure. I assume you've heard of it. The expressions of those 3 people changed. The Pei Group, whose businesses span the globe, has an office building named after Pei located in downtown San Francisco. If you don't want to cause trouble, Pei Huijin continued, speaking at a steady pace with a cold tone, get lost. They weren't clueless street thugs, they knew there were certain people you just couldn't mess with that. And once you got tangled up in certain kinds of trouble, you'd never be able to shake it off. The man standing before them was wearing a coat and suit that didn't exactly scream brand, yet were obviously incredibly expensive. The watch on his wrist could buy them a small apartment in San Francisco. Every single word he spoke, every single character carries the confidence of I can bankrupt you. The man at the front awkwardly withdrew his hand and took a step back. All right. The man at the head of the group left with the other 2. The music in the bar was still loud and chaotic, and Pei Huijin turned around to look at the woman behind him. She was still trembling, her face pale like a petal dampened by rain. Hey, he said, his voice slightly softer than before, are you okay? Shen Qingyu looked up and met his dark, piercing gaze. The light from the bar was reflected in those eyes, deep and unfathomable. She opened her mouth meaning to say thank you, but found her throat so hoarse she couldn't utter a single word. She was just terrified, and the effects of the alcohol were surging back up. Her legs went weak, and she immediately fell forward. Pei Huijin instinctively reached out to catch her. She crashed into his arms, carrying a faint scent of alcohol and a crisp fragrance of gardenia. He frowned and lowered his head to look at the woman in his arms. She had already passed out. He had originally intended to hand her over to the bar staff, but when he looked at her defenseless face, he ultimately changed his mind. He carried her out of the bar. As a cold breeze blew, he suddenly realized how lightly she was dressed. The cashmere cardigan she was wearing simply couldn't keep out the chill of San Francisco's night. He helped her into his car, fastened her seatbelt, and then drove back to his apartment. Yes, no saint, bringing her home in the first place already implies he doesn't mind if something happens. What? Moreover, she was drunk, wrapped her arms around his neck, and whispered in his ear, sir, thank you. Her breath was soft and warm, brushing against his ear lobby like a feather, gently tickling his heart. Pei Huijian's self-control crumbled completely at this moment. He laid her down on the bed, but she wrapped herself around him like an octopus, kissing his lips. A night of loss of control. Shen Qingyu hugged the quilt, buried her face in it, and wished she could just disappear altogether. How could she be with a stranger? Just then, the bathroom door opened. The man stepped out wearing only a bath towel around his waist. Shen Qingyu's gaze instantly froze. Broad shoulders, a narrow waist, his abdominal muscles were sharply defined. Beads of water slid down his cool, pale skin, landing precisely on the toned line of his waist before finally disappearing into the bath towel. It's that man from last night, Pei Huijin. When he saw that she was awake, he paused briefly in his steps. His face was expressionless, as if the person who'd lost control last night hadn't been him at all. Awake? He said, his voice hoarse from sleep, deep and magnetic. Shen Qingyu's face instantly turned bright red. She gripped the blanket tightly, wrapping herself up so completely that not a single inch of her skin was exposed. Like a startled ostrich. Thanks for last night, she said softly, her voice as faint as a mosquito's buzz. Also, I'm sorry I got drunk and ended up bothering you. Pei Huijin raised an eyebrow, walked to the bedside, and looked down at her from above. Is that all you're doing, just causing trouble? Shen Qingyu's heart gave a sudden leap. She looked up and met his dark, piercing eyes that held a hint of amusement she couldn't quite decipher. I'll take responsibility for you, she said hurriedly, as if delivering a defense in court. For example, my name is Shen Qingyu. I'm a PhD in law from Stanford, and I know who you are. Pei Huijin interrupted her, his tone calm and unflappable. Shen Qingyu was stunned, you know. Pei Huijin took out his phone, opened a news article, and handed it to her. On the screen was the news of her marriage to the Pei Group, accompanied by the caption, "The powerful Shen and Pei families of Jingbi joined forces. Shen Qingyu, the only daughter of the Shen family, will marry Pei Huijin, the heir of the Pei family. Shen Qingyu. She now feels like she wants to die. She ran away from her wedding and ended up going to a bar to get drunk only to end up sleeping with her arranged marriage partner." Hey, Huijin glanced at her, who looked utterly hopeless and resigned, and let out a low chuckle. "Miss Shen, are you saying this counts as premarital infidelity?" "No," Shen Qingyu's eyes reddened with urgency. I didn't know it was you." "Oh?" Pei Huijin leaned forward, his towering figure looming over her. "Then if it was me, who were you planning to spend last night with?" His breath landed on her face, carrying a faint cedar scent exactly the same as the one she wore. Shen Qingyu's heartbeat was so rapid it felt like it might leap right out of her throat. She turned her face away, unable to meet his gaze. "I've had too much to drink." Pei Huijin looked at the faint blush on the tips of her ears, reached out, and gently pinched her chin, forcing her to look at him. "Shen Qingyu." He called her name, his voice low and serious. "Don't use being drunk as an excuse." His thumb gently stroked her lower lip, his touch both ambiguous and commanding. "From the moment you grabbed me at the bar, you've had nowhere to run." Shen Qingyu's ears fell unexpectedly. She wasn't afraid, she was just deeply hurt and frustrated. She had thought her life would be ruined by an arranged marriage, but she never could have imagined that the very person who treated her with utmost tenderness last night would end up being the one to destroy her life. Pei Huijin panicked and quickly reached out to wipe away her tears. "Why are you crying? Could I scare you?" Shen Qingyu shook her head, burrowing into his arms and holding him tightly. "Pei Huijin, I don't want a marriage alliance." Pei Huijin paused for a moment, then tightened his grip around her, holding her close and softly saying, "Then let's not get together." Shen Qingyu was taken aback and looked up at him saying, "But both families have already made arrangements." Pei Huijin curled his lips into a faint smile and lowered his head to kiss her forehead. "Shen Qingyu, I'm marrying you not for an alliance, but simply because I want to marry you." His kiss was gentle and reverent, imbued with a tenderness uniquely his own. The moment I laid eyes on you in the bar, I knew I was done for, he said, looking at her with a seriousness that felt like a vow. Shen Qingyu, I've liked you for a long time now. Shen Qingyu's ears fell even more heavily, and she tiptoed to kiss his lips. Her accident was, it turns out, already destined. What she thought was an elopement turned out to be her destined path. Pei Huijin took the initiative, deepening the kiss. Sunlight streamed in through the white curtains, falling gently unserenely upon the two embracing figures. A month later, Shen Qingyu and Pei Huijin officially announced their relationship. It's not a marriage alliance, it's a romance. Both families in northern Beijing were taken aback. They hadn't expected that these two individuals, who had resisted marriage to each other with all their might, would actually end up together on their own. Chen Qingyu's mom called her. Her voice dinged with laughter. Qingyu, that guy Pei Huijin has had his eye on you ever since he was a kid. It was he who took the initiative in this arranged marriage, just to marry you. Shen Qingyu was stunned, so it turned out He Qiti noticed her all along. Pei Huijin walked over, wrapped his arms around her from behind, and rested his chin on the top of her head. What are you thinking about? Shen Qingyu turned around and pinched his cheek. Mr. Pei, so it turns out you've been plotting something all along? Pei Huijin let out a soft laugh and kissed her lips. Yes, ever since a long time ago I've been after only you. The sunlight outside the window is just right, shining on the two people embracing each other. Time flows peacefully and beautifully. Shen Qingyu closed her eyes, feeling his warmth and heartbeat. Her heart filled with a deep sense of peace and security. Her life's trajectory didn't become straightened out by marriage, rather, it blossomed into its most beautiful flower precisely because of an accident. Her celibate CEO has never been interested in women, rather. His tenderness and special affection are reserved exclusively for her.